want to show you how to import data into SQL Server. First, I just want to talk about why you would do that. Let's say you had some data in another database or an Excel file or a text file, and you wanted to get that data into an SQL Server table. You don't want to necessarily have to type all that data in. So what you can do is do an import using an import wizard and pull that data into SQL Server. Like I said, you can get that from a lot of different files. You can get it from another Access database. You can get it from text files. I'll show you real quick one text file and how it might look with some data in it. So notice you might have a text file like this that has data neatly arranged. You can see you have names, addresses. So as long as it's in an orderly arrangement, or the same with an Excel file where you have columns and rows, then you can import it into SQL Server. So here's how you would do it. I'm going to go to Start and find my SQL Server section. And in there, look for a import and export data. So mine has a 32-bit and 64-bit. I'm just going to use the 64-bit. I'd probably say 9 times out of 10 that's what you're going to use. So let's click that. It should start up an import wizard, and there's just a few steps in here that are important to understand. So as I go through this, feel free to back the video up and check over these steps. So I'm going to hit next on this. So it's going to ask you to choose the source where you're getting the data from, and then the destination where you're putting the data in your SQL Server database. So like I said, the source can be an Excel file, it can be another database, it could be an Oracle database, another SQL Server database. But if you're getting it from a text file, they call that flat file. So we're going to choose for the source data, we're going to choose flat file. So that, like I said, that includes text files, comma delimited files, things like that. So if you choose that, on this screen you have to do a couple more things. You have to browse and find that file. So I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to go out to my desktop and grab that text file, or click it, hit open. Probably need to do one or two more things here. Most of these are probably, the defaults are probably good on most of these, but a lot of times you will have to choose a text qualifier. One way to look at that is to go into the text file and look at it, or you can click this preview here. So notice what they mean by text qualifier. Notice each value in here has quotes around it. So sometimes the text qualifier is a single quote. In this case, it's a full quote. So that's what I need to type in here. Just put a quotation mark. And if you do that, you can even go back and preview it, and notice now the data will come in clean. So once we've changed the text qualifier, we shouldn't have to really change anything else here. Let's hit next. Now we have to choose a destination, or the SQL Server instance where it's going. So to do that, if we're going to SQL Server, which we typically will be, on this second screen, which looks just like the first one, we're choosing the destination. So we need to choose towards the bottom here, that first one that says SQL Server. In this version, there's only 2 that say SQL Server. They're at the bottom, and I'm just going to choose the first one. So it should, if you have an SQL Server instance running on your machine, it should go ahead and find it, but you do need to point it to the correct database. So to do that, click this drop down. It'll list the various databases you have in your SQL Server. So in this case, I'm putting it in a database I have called Testing All. So I'm just going to click that as my destination database and hit the next button. Here's the next thing on these imports. You have kind of 2 choices. You can import a file like this and it will create a new table. So if I do that, it'll basically create a new table in my SQL Server database with all the columns and all the data that's coming into it. Or you can put it into an existing table. So if you want to put it in an existing table, you do it from this screen. It's kind of hard, it doesn't really say it here, but if you click over here, so here's where it's coming from, the text file, here's where it's going into a new table. So if I click over here, it will let you choose some existing tables in your database, right? So it's not really visible at the beginning, but I'm going to click here and I'm going to choose an existing table instead of creating a new table. So I have one called TBL users that I'm going to put it into. One more thing you might want to do, and you don't have to do this every time, but I just want to show you how to do it if you had to, is figure out what data you want from this file to go into what fields in your database. So to do that, on this same screen, click this Edit Mappings button. And the screen is a little strange, but what we want to do here is we have the source, and it has the various sort of fields from the text file, and none of them are matched up with that new table because they don't have the exact same names. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to pull in from my text file last name, first name, and social. But over here in the destination, I need to choose my fields in my SQL Server database where those are going to go. So for last name, I'm going to click here and find the field in my database where I want that to go. So that's what they mean by edit mappings. We're just kind of mapping the data coming in and putting it into the correct field. So for first name, I'm going to click here, put it in that field. And down here, I'm going to put this value into a field in my database called that. So once you've sort of matched up the data or edited the mappings, you can just hit OK here. Then you can hit Next. And we're pretty much done at this point. So we can just hit Next on this screen. Hit Next again. And hit Finish. And that's it. So once we sort of set the various options we wanted for our import, it went ahead and ran it. And real quickly, I'll just show you that in my database. This table used to be empty. I just created it a couple minutes ago. Now it should have the data from that text file populated in here. So obviously it's much easier than retyping all this data.